Lesson 73, solve compound inequalities. So what are compound inequalities? There are two inequalities combined with the word and or. Remember our inequality symbols: less than, greater than, less than or equal to, greater than or equal to. And there are two different kinds of compound inequalities we're looking at today. Conjunction, which means they have something in common. And when we write that, we can use the word and, the keyword and, because they have a solution in common. And the graphs, they point towards each other. Disjunction is a compound inequality that uses the word or. Think of disjunction, they separate. They go in opposite directions, away from each other. So let's take a look at an example here. All real numbers are greater than 1 and are less than 4. So let's think about that. Real numbers are greater than 1 and their real numbers are less than 4. That is one way of writing it. I could also have real numbers in the middle and say that it's less than 4, but it's greater than 1. So there is two different ways of writing that. This one is less than r, which is less than 4, or you can use the keyword. And you have to use the keyword and in between the two because they are conjunctions. They have something in common. So now let's graph these. If I do the first one, r is greater than 1. So I find 1, it just has the greater than. So it's an open circle. Greater than 1 means it goes to the right. And it's less than 4. Open circle on 4. Less than means it goes to the left. So it forms like a tabletop or a bridge. They go towards each other. So that would be my graph for that one. The winds of a hurricane range from 75 miles per hour to 200 miles per hour. So we will say, let's use W. The wind ranges from, so it has to be greater than or equal to 75. And the wind has to be less than or equal to a speed of 200. If I didn't want to write it with the word and, I could have 75 on the low end. So it's got to be greater than or equal to 75, but less than or equal to 200. Now if I graph that, I can start with, let's just say this is 75. I'll count by 25, so 75, 100, 125, 150, 175, 200. I have the equal to sign in, so I have filled in circles on 75 and 200. It's got to be greater than 75, but less than 200, but it can equal to 200. So there I have a combined, so from, they have it towards each other, so common solutions. More work with that. All real numbers that are greater than 5 and less than 10. So write and graph. So I'll write it two ways, one with and then one without that. So real numbers has to be greater than 5 and real numbers have to be less than 10. That's one way of writing it. I have 5 on one end, real numbers in the middle, 10 on the other side. So real numbers has to be greater than 5, but less than 10. Those are our two ways of writing it. Graphing it. I have 5 here. Do 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 would be here. We have open circles because it doesn't equal. So it's got to be greater than 5, but less than 10. Next one, I recommended cooking time for lasagna from 16 minutes to 20 minutes. When they're saying from one point to another, that means it can be that number to the top number. So that means we'll do cooking time. So I'll use T, can be it has to be greater than or equal to 16, but it has to be less than or equal to 20 minutes. And use the word and if I write it that way. Or you can put t in the middle. It has to be greater than or equal to 16 minutes, but less than or equal to 20 minutes. When you write it together like this, the symbols are facing the same direction. When you use and, they're facing opposite directions. Now let's draw our number line. I'll have 16, do 18, we'll do 20. Have filled in circles on 16 and 20. So it's got to be greater than 16, but less than 20. And a word problem with conjunctions. A cellular phone contract includes a monthly usage fee of $10 plus an additional 10 cents per minute of talk time. Suppose that the monthly cell phone bill is between $30 and $40. Write a compound inequality that describes the situation. Solve the inequality to find the number of minutes that can be used to keep the monthly bill within the desired amounts. So to start off, let's write the equation for how they come up with your bill. Well, it's $10 plus 10 cents a minute. So I'm going to use M. And on the low end, they said it has to be between $30 and $40. So on the low end, it's $30. So it's got to be greater than or equal to $30, but less than or equal to $40. Now that I have everything written as my inequality, I just solve for M. So I start with the term that does not have, always start in the middle. And the term that does not have a variable. So the opposite of adding 10 is subtracting 10. And I do that on all three parts. 30 minus 10 is 20, which is less than or equal to 0.10 m, which is less than or equal to 30. Now to get m by itself, the opposite of multiplying by 0.10 is divide by 0.10. And since we can't divide by a decimal, it's really 200 divided by 1, which would be 200 minutes, is less than equal to m, which is less than or equal to 30 divided by 0.1 would be 300. So the number of minutes that you can use would be between 200 and 300 minutes. And this would be our answer. Next one, a local moving company charges $60 an hour plus $50 gasoline fee. So this would be 60 per hour plus the $50 for gas. They have a minimum charge of $140. So it has to be greater than or equal to $140, but it cannot be more than 500. So not more than 500 can be spent. So it has to be a maximum of $500. Write and solve a conjunction that can be used to find the number of hours that will keep the bill within those limits. So now, start in the middle. I need to get 60h by itself. The opposite of adding 50 is subtracting 50. So I'm going to subtract 50 on all sides. And I get 90 is less than or equal to 60h, which is less than or equal to 450. To get h by itself, I divide by 60 on all the sides. This would be 9 divided by 6. I divide by 3/3. That gives me 3/2, which will be 3/2 is the same as 1.5. So I'm going to use the 1.5 here. So $1.50. Or 1.50 less than h the hour, so an hour and a half to, so 450 divided by 6. 450 divided by 60 gives us 7.5. So we would have between, it has the number of hours that can be used would be 1.5 to 7.5 hours. Moving to disjunctions. So they don't have anything in common. So they use the keyword or. So real numbers has to be greater than 9, or real numbers are less than 3. And for this one, for disjunctions, you can't combine them. It has to be with the keyword or. So now if I put these down, I'll have 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So it can be greater than 9, open circle on 3, or less than 3. So they go in opposite directions. There's a gap. They separate. Okay. Next one. All real numbers no more than, so it can equal 7, but it can't be. So it's got to be less than or equal to 7, or no less than 11. So it's got to be greater than or equal to 11. Now let's put our numbers down. We'll start with 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. I'll do 12, 13. Filled in circle on 7, filled in circle on 11. Says it has to be less than or equal to 7 to the left, or greater than or equal to 11 going to the right. Next one, all real numbers greater than 6, or all real numbers less than 1. So let's do 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Fill open circle on 6, open circle on 1, greater than 6, less than 1. Next, all real numbers greater than or equal to 5 or less than or equal to 0. So we have real numbers greater than or equal to 5, or, and just make sure you look at that keyword, or real numbers are less than or equal to 0. So I have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have a filled in circle because we're using the equal to part with this comparison symbol. So a filled in circle in 0 and 5. Gotta be less than or equal to 0, or greater than or equal to 5. Go in opposite directions. Next, solve disjunctions. So disjunctions, you have the or. You do everything the same as what we did with conjunctions. You just have to do each thing twice. So to get x by itself, I add 3 to both sides, and I have x is less than a negative 2. Or, on this side, I divide by negative 2, and I have x, and because I'm dividing by a negative number, I need to flip the symbol. Negative 6 divided by negative 2 is a positive 3. So this would be our answer. X is less than negative 2, or x is greater than 3. Next one, get x by itself by subtracting 6, and we get x is less than 1. Or, divide by negative 3 here, x, flip the symbol because we're dividing by a negative, is greater than 3. Here, divide by 5. Since I'm not dividing by a negative number, I do not flip it. So x is greater than a negative 1. Or, divide by 6. Again, I'm not dividing by a negative, so I keep the symbol a negative 3. So this would be our disjunction. Now with graphs, write compound inequality from the graph. So for this one, I know I have a number at negative 1, and I have a number at positive 5. Because the lines are attached between the two circles, I know it's a conjunction. I'm going to put an x in the middle. So x is greater than negative 1 because it's open circle and it goes to the right. but it's less than or equal to, the equal to part, because it's a filled in circle, less than goes to the left. So that's one way of writing it. Or you can write it as x is greater than -1, and x is less than or equal to 5. Those are two different ways of doing it. You get to decide which which format to write it in. Letter B. I'm going to use B for it. I know that they are separate. There's nothing in common. They go in their own direction. So I know this is a disjunction, so I use the word or. So I'm going to put or down, and I'm going to use B as my variable. B is going to be less than or equal to, filled in circle, going to the left to -2, or B is greater than or equal to, fill in circle, to the right, to of +4. So there is my compound inequality. And our last ones. Write the compound inequalities for these. They're going in opposite directions, so this is an or. So I'll put an or here in the gap. So here I have G is less than or equal to, because it's going to the left, this is at a -1. Or G is greater than, open circle, than 2. The bottom, they're attached, so I know it's an and. I'm going to use the variable h in the middle. So it's greater than or equal to 8, but it's less than or equal to 12. You could have also written as h is greater than or equal to 8, and h is less than or equal. There actually would be an equal to, so just the less than sign here, because it's an open circle. Less than 12. So that is our lesson today on solving compound inequalities.